I'm Eric Norlander, one of the designers of the new UnoSynth Pro from IK Multimedia. This is the follow-up to the original UnoSynth that came out a couple of years ago. The UnoSynth Pro is a real analog synth. This is not modeling or anything, true analog. It's available as a desktop unit with capacitance sensing keys, and then also as an actual keyboard with 37 semi-weighted keys from Fatar. It plays great, feels great. So let me tell you a little bit about the synth. Okay, so the UnoSynth Pro is really a no-compromise real analog synth. Our first product, the UnoSynth, was more of a budget synth, like getting analog just in the hands of everybody. And now with the UnoSynth Pro, the idea is we are kicking it up a notch, as they say, and creating just a truly pro product with pro features on every level. So compared to the original UnoSynth, there is just more on every level. So let's start with the oscillators. So the UnoSynth Pro has 3 discrete continuous wave shape oscillators. There's oscillator sync available. FM, of course, pulse width modulation, and also a ring modulator available. So pretty darn cool. Those 3 oscillators get mixed together into the filter section, and it's a dual filter architecture now. So we have the original Uno OTA filter, which is a 2-pole multimode filter, so it can be high pass or low pass. And then there's a new filter, a second filter, which is an SSI chip that can be either 2-pole or 4-pole low pass. Okay, so this is pretty cool. So we can take these 2 filters, they can be run either in series or parallel, in or out of phase. So it's not like you can just use one or the other, you can use them both at the same time. So if you think about all the possible permutations of, this filter in this mode, this filter in this mode, in or out of phase, series or parallel, there's 24 possible filter modes. And yes, you can gang together the 2 filters in low pass mode and create an actual 6-pole analog filter, which sounds pretty, 6-pole analog low pass filter, I should say, which sounds pretty massive. There are 2 4-stage envelopes, so dedicated amp envelope and dedicated filter envelope. There are 2 LFOs. There is a 16-slot modulation matrix. Okay, modulation matrix basically means you can assign nearly any source, like an envelope or an LFO, to nearly any destination, like an oscillator or a filter. So in addition to doing, conventional things, you can do kind of unconventional things, and this basically gives you modular synth functionality right inside the UnoSynth Pro. So I mentioned the envelopes and the LFOs earlier. Okay, so let's say you want the filter envelope to modulate something other than the filter, like, I don't know, the pitch of the oscillators, or modulate the pulse width, or modulate the wave shape of oscillator 2 or the wave shape of oscillator 1 and 3. You can do all that in the modulation matrix, of course. Okay, the UnoSynth Pro has a greatly expanded sequencer. It can have up to 64 steps per preset, and you can record in real time or step by step. You can automate over 80 parameters per step, which means you can just completely reprogram the synth from step to step. So in addition to programming the notes, I can change the cutoff frequency, I can change the filter envelope decay, I can change the speed of the LFO, I can change the amount of overdrive. I can do up to 80 of those things per step. So I can just completely morph the sound from one step to the next with up to 64 of those steps per preset. And then you go, hey, Eric, that's cool, but 64 steps, that's not a very long song. Aha, well, we have what's called a song mode now. Much like drum machines, from days of yore, you can link together presets. So link together a bunch of these 64-step patterns in presets and create a song in the song mode. So you can do, incredibly long, elaborate morphing of sounds by linking together, these multiple 64-step presets in the song mode. Okay, speaking of presets, there are 256 of them. They are all user rewritable, so you're not stuck with factory presets that you may not want. So you can rewrite all of them or keep all of them if you want. On the effects side, we have an analog overdrive, which is a little bit enhanced. Not a little bit, it's a lot enhanced from the original Uno overdrive effect. This one goes quite a bit farther with its gain structure, so you can go from kind of subtle overdrive to like really kind of screaming distortion, and it's an analog effect as well, which is very cool. Then after that, we've introduced something new, and it's something that shouldn't surprise you from IK Multimedia. There are now 3 digital effect slots in the instrument. IK is known for its digital effects from T-Rax and from Sample Tank and from Amplitube, of course. So now we have 3 slots where you can use those effects in the UnoSynth Pro. So there's a modulation slot, there's a delay slot, and there's a reverb slot. There's 12 available algorithms, and they all sound amazing. And if you say, well, but I want a pure analog synth, I don't want any digital on my synth. Okay, well they're run on a return, so they're not directly in line with the audio path. So just turn them off, and you've got your pure analog signal path. But if you're like most people and you want a little reverb, a little echo, a little chorus on your synth, okay, you're going to want to use these effects. They really sound amazing. And something I forgot to mention earlier, and it relates to the effects. The 3 oscillators can be used paraphonically. What is paraphonically, you ask? A lot of you know, but some of you don't. Okay, paraphonically means you can allow each oscillator to respond to a different note, which means I can play a 3-part chord. It's still going through the same single filter, but I can actually play 3-part harmony on the keyboard. Okay, great. It's not quite a polyphonic synth, it's paraphonic, as they say. We can still do a lot with that, but with these super cool IK digital effects, we can now do something that you might not expect. We made a product called Syntronic a few years ago, and we modeled the ensemble chorus of the ARP string ensemble and the great Roland ensemble effect that's in like the RS505 and the Juno 60 and all of that. We put that ensemble effect in the UnoSynth Pro. So you can actually use the Paraphonic oscillators in the UnoSynth Pro with the ensemble effect, and you basically have a 3-voice string machine now. So you just set the UnoSynth Pro to square waves, maybe do a little high pass and low pass filtering with key tracking, run it through the ensemble effect, and you have an amazing sounding string machine basically as a bonus inside the synth. I get excited about things like that. I don't know. I think it's cool. All right, what else? I got my notes here. Oh, I don't know if you can see on the back. On both the desktop and on the keyboard, we have 2 sets of gate and CV outputs, gate and control voltage inputs and outputs, that is. 4 jacks total. These can be assigned in the modulation matrix per preset. And what this allows you to do is interface the UnoSynth Pro with external equipment like Eurorack equipment or giant modular things like I'm sitting in front of right now. So, you know, it doesn't have to be the same thing all the time. So on one preset, you could say, I'm going to send out, okay, I'm going to send out pitch from the keyboard and, you know, the envelope shape out of the CV outs, and then I'm going to send out the gate from the keyboard and the gate from the arpeggiator on the gate outputs. I forgot to mention there's an arpeggiator as well. You knew that, right? You'd expect that. Okay, on another preset, I can say, you know what? I want to do something totally different. I want to send out the LFO, LFO1, and LFO2 out of the control voltage outputs because I want to modulate you know, all these banks of oscillators, you know, on the modular Moog synth, for example. So you can actually change what the gate and CV inputs and outputs are doing on the UnoSynth Pro per preset. So that's pretty cool. We basically thought about, you know, anything we'd want to do with this synth, and then we just made it happen because, you know, that's the way we roll. What can we say? All right. The UnoSynth Pro has balanced outputs. They are 1/4-inch outputs. It's the same on both the keyboard and the desktop unit. In fact, I should say, aside from the actual keyboards, the features are identical between the 2 models. So we have stereo 1/4-inch balanced I/O, which means when they're not playing, these things are dead quiet. And when they are playing, well, they are dead quiet except for the actual synth tone coming out. There's not going to be hum or noise or anything like that. Again, Pro. That's the point here. You may also notice we have 5-pin MIDI in and out. So you can connect this to your external hardware synths. You can connect this to your Alesis Andromeda if you have one of those. I do, and it's cool. UnoSynth and an Andromeda together, that's a cool combination. Or anything else you might have. Of course, it also connects with USB, so you can use USB MIDI as well, if you like that. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention. There's an audio input. And the audio input on the original UnoSynth was just a direct pass-through. So you could daisy chain like an Uno drum and an UnoSynth together without needing to use a mixer. Okay, you can do that here if you want. But now what we also let you do, and you know where I'm going, we let you run the audio input through the filter, which in this case is 2 filters. And then we also let you go after the filter just into the effects if you want. So if you just want to use you know, the modulation, delay, and reverb, and you want to use your UnoSynth Pro as a super cool effects processor, you can do that as well. However, if you do want to do that, I highly recommend that you go through the filter first, because imagine having an effects processor where you have a dual filter ahead of your effects. So you can have, like, you know, analog high pass filter and then an analog low pass filter, before you hit your modulation, your delay, and your reverb. So if you're a guitar player and you want to use this for a guitar effect, man, okay, this is like the ultimate effect. And even better, let's say you have a vintage Mini Moog. Everyone should have a vintage Mini Moog, right? Okay, run that into here and use this as an effects processor for your vintage Mini Moog, you know, or whatever, or your new, you know, Korg ARP Odyssey, which is another, you know, cool modern synth. Doesn't have an effects processor. This does. Use them together. It's cool. Or, you know, we talked about Eurorack stuff. Let's say you're, you know, you're using this to interface with your Eurorack or your giant modular Moog system, your Oberheim SEMs, whatever you have. You can also use the effects processor on the UnoSynth Pro separately. So you could be, you know, using, you know, the gate and CV I/O on this, you know, to do modular synth applications, and then separately you could be coming in the audio input and using the effects processor. UnoSynth Pro from IK Multimedia, real analog. It's 3 continuous wave shape oscillators with sync, FM, PWM, and ring mod, dual filters, the original 2-pole OTA multi-mode, plus a new SSI chip, which can be 2-pole or 4-pole low pass, 2 4-stage envelopes, 2 LFOs, 16-slot modulation matrix, a 64-step sequencer with over 80 automatable parameters per step, 256 presets, analog overdrive, 3 more digital effect slots with mod, delay, and reverb available, gate and CV I/O ×2, programmable per preset, balanced I/O, 5-pin MIDI, audio input. Most importantly, it sounds amazing. Check out all of the audio demos and the videos on ikmultimedia.com. The guys spent a lot of time putting these together. I think they look and sound great. Check it out. I think you'll be really happy.